IVs and EVs in Pokemon are a more hidden mechanic that play a big role in what your Pokemon can do. Before we learn how to maximize IVs and EVs for your Pokemon, we're going to unpack what each are. EVs, or effort values, are much more simple and are simply value points your Pokemon can earn from beating other Pokemon. A Pokemon will give effort values when beaten based on a few things. A good rule of thumb is the Pokemon's highest stat will give off that specific type of effort value, and if they are in a more evolved state, they will give off more EVs. So let's say we battle a Gible. Gible has an attack stat being its highest, and it will give 1 attack effort point. Now let's say we battle its evolution Gabite, we get 2 now. And now we battle its final evolution Garchomp, we will get 3 points. There are some discrepancies on how many EV points there are in total, but it's either 510 or 512 based on the source that you look at. Now with that being said, it is completely up to you how you choose to increase each stat. This next part is going to be a little confusing, so I'm going to do my absolute best to try and break it down. Every stat has either a neutral stat based on its nature, the text will be in white, a beneficial stat, the text will be in red, or a hindered stat, the text will be in blue, aside from HP. The maximum amount of stat increase for each stat is 57-ish for hindered, 63-ish for neutral, and 69-ish for beneficial, which adds up since neutral is 63 and a 10% increase is beneficial, landing us close to 69, and a hindered state is a 10% decrease, landing close to 57. The reason for the ish of each of these is because after doing some math later on, we will notice in some cases it has decimal values and the game rounds up or down based on that. You need 4 EVs to raise a stat by 1 point. So remember this, each stat can only have a total of 255 max EV points. 255 max EVs divided by 4 EVs for every 1 stat point increase equals that same 63.75 max stat increase we talked about earlier, the 63-ish. However, the game might in fact round down from 63.75 to 63. So we wasted those extra 3 EVs we put in. The 0.75 is actually 3 EVs, so technically 1 EV is equivalent to 0.25 increase for a stat. So to be safe, always aim for 252 EVs max per stat rather than the 255, which is the true maximum, but that remaining 0.75 most likely gets rounded down and wasted. If you try to max 2 stats, you'd notice that it's just shy of 510 or the 512. So from there, you would simply put that remaining 1-ish point into another stat, or depending how you do it, save it for other strategic places. Once the Pokemon gets to 100, you will notice the increase of 63-ish, granted it was a neutral state and you gave it full EVs. At level 50, you will notice it might be around 32, which makes sense since they're both halved. Oftentimes, I will use Pokemon at level 50 as a basis and see increases of 32 if they gave them full EVs in one stat, more so than them at 100, that's just my personal preference. As of right now, there is no way to check the total EVs a Pokemon has, so this process is truly one that needs to be done to a T, and with a load of time, precision, and strategy. It'll be a little complex at first, but this can help you get started. Now, you might notice that you already beat a lot of Pokemon and you're unsure how to fix up your Pokemon's EVs, or you don't even know where to start. Well, there are a few things you can do. Eating specific berries can actually reduce the EVs your Pokemon has. Simply read the specific berry and see if it shows what certain stat it will reduce, usually decreasing it by 10 EVs. Counter to that, vitamins in the game, HP up, protein, iron, calcium, zinc, and carbos, those can increase EVs simply by giving them to your Pokemon, usually by around 10 EVs increased per specific vitamin. You can also use feathers as well, which are very good for fine-tuning your stats since they only give 1 EV point each. Having your Pokemon hold a power item can give them gained EVs despite the type of Pokemon you're battling. So again, if you battle a Gible but you hold a specific power item that gives you speed, you'll get Gible's attack EV and extra speed EVs based on that item itself. Usually the item can give around 8 EVs in addition to whatever Pokemon you battled. This is very good for those that want to battle Pokemon rather than use items like berries or vitamins. Switching over to IVs, or individual values, these are basically the genetics of Pokemon. They are generated randomly for most Pokemon aside from a few cases. Each stat has an IV from 0 to 31. It goes as follows. 0 is no good, 1 to 15 is decent, 16 to 25 is pretty good, 26 to 29 is very good, 30 is fantastic, and then 31 is best. meaning 31 is a perfect IV in that stat. Again, in most cases, these are randomly generated. The exceptions are as follows. Legendary Pokemon will always have a few best stats. Higher Terra Raid Pokemon, so 5-star instead of 1-star you catch, will have a few stats that are best. Egg Pokemon bred based on mechanics we will speak on could also have a few stats that are best. The higher a Pokemon's IV, the higher the stat can be. Let's use Gible once more as an example. A Gible with a 16 IV attack compared to a Gible with a 31 IV attack will likely have around 15 attack points less than the perfect attack IV Gible. Now there are two ways to maximize your Pokemon's IVs, breeding or literal genetic enhancement through super training. From breeding, if you breed 2 compatible Pokemon, they make a Pokemon at level 1 and the kid will have 3 random IVs from the parents. If you have one parent hold a Destiny Knot, then 5 IVs at random will apply to that Pokemon. If you have one Pokemon hold an Everstone, that Pokemon's nature will pass to the child Pokemon. Chances are you will be using a Ditto as one Pokemon since Ditto can breed with pretty much anything, and the actual Pokemon you want as the second one. In Scarlet and Violet, unlike other previous generations where you would go to a Pokemon daycare and leave 2 Pokemon, wait some time and come back and there's an egg, you now can have a picnic option that you set up, which has the same exact principles. Picnics use your party Pokemon as the basis for the eggs, so choose carefully, or rather only have 2 Pokemon in your party and select them. Eggs will populate in the basket by the picnic if enough time passes. To hatch eggs faster, you can eat a sandwich that has egg power, or hold a Pokemon that has the ability Flame Body. I would put it in slot 1 just in case. Some eggs hatch faster than others based on specific type, specific Pokemon, etc. Hyper training is way easier. After you beat the game, you can do a few things. One is go back to the Pokemon Center and the ability to judge your Pokemon's IVs will come as an option. Secondly, you can now participate in hyper training. Hyper training consumes 1 bottle cap to make your Pokemon stat become best, so a perfect IV, and a golden bottle cap will make all IVs perfect. You can get bottle caps through a few means, one being purchasing them at Delibird Presents in a few towns, those being Messagosa, Cascarafa, and Levincia, for 20,000 Pokédollar, or by winning 5-star or 6-star Terra Raid battles. Chansey's supply store, which is in the same locations as mentioned before, as well as Montenevera, which I do recommend you actually go to first because it also has that same hyper training NPC who uses the bottle caps. This supply store has a few items you can purchase to further change your Pokemon. Mints change the nature of the Pokemon to whatever your mint says, which can give you a beneficial nature that you need. And ability capsules can change the ability of your Pokemon to another ability if that Pokemon has 2 different abilities it can have. For example, Pawniard can have Defiant or Inner Focus, so using the ability capsule will swap it to the opposite one. There's also a Mirror Herb which can give your Pokemon egg moves during the picnic sequence, special moves Pokemon do not normally learn during leveling up, like a Charmander learning Dragon Dance. Aside from a few other minute things, this is basically the entirety of what you need to know for EVs, IVs, hyper training, eggs, and Pokemon stat modifications. I hope this helped a bunch. Let me know what you think down below. If you're new, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.